Welcome to Old Iron Machine Works. In this video I will be rebuilding 5 Cat 931 backhoe cylinders. Fortunately, these cylinders are actually in good shape. They're just from the 80s original and just needs to be resealed up. This job came in kind of at a bad time. I was in the process of moving my shop around and moving equipment out to make room for other equipment going in. So I called in some help. I brought in Jack. Jack's already part of the family, and he's been seeing my daughter probably over 10 years now, I think it's been. And anyway, he was interested in giving me a hand, so we kind of did some team effort on this job. Yeah, and these it definitely took a rosebud and doing some heating to get it apart. There was really no kind of anti-seize or anything on it, and everything was just kind of rusted and locked together. You know, and that's where heat's definitely your friend. You'll see here there's nothing that seals the piston to the shaft. If you had an application where you did not want it to bleed down at all, you would normally have some kind of an O-ring or something that would seal the piston to the rod to keep from bleeding off. Here you can see just how old the seals are. They're all cracked and crumbling. I don't do too much cylinder work anymore, but in 1981, at the age of 21, I was hired at a tractor dealership and was put in a service truck at a pretty young age, and I worked there for 20 years. So I have definitely done my share of hydraulic cylinders. I try to avoid them as much as I can now, but they're good paying jobs, so as long as I'm buying equipment for my shop, I try to do jobs that pay for it. Here you can see the the rust that's built up, just from years of water and moisture getting in there. And I am a firm believer. I love the glass bead cabinets. I run a pressure pot style, and I still think it's the best tool out there, for just removing, all the rust, and kind of shows you what you got when you're done. Here you can kind of see the pitting from the rust, and actually these aren't that bad. The threads still look fine. That shoulder right there, that's the critical shoulder. So the other pitting there, isn't going to hurt a thing. And kind of the same thing with the OD of this gland here. The critical portion is the O-ring going to seal down in that groove. It seals from there to the barrel, and all that part looks real nice. Here it's showing some of the corrosion inside, just from the moisture getting in there. And that just needs to be polished out, and then we just got to make sure there's no little divots in the area where the O-ring seals. The other stuff outside of the O-ring doesn't mean much. Here, just using a little flap disc for polishing out the burrs and the rust. Here I'm just getting a good measurement to show me exactly where the O-ring rides. And then once again, I got to just make sure there's no little divot right at the contact point of the O-ring. Cat could have did a better job of putting a secondary O-ring outside farther, just to help keep the moisture from getting in and corroding. Here Jack's just kind of cleaning off the rust on the threads and some of the burnt paint from where we had to heat it up with the torch to get it apart. And yes, he has a full face shield on. Always use glasses and a face shield when you're dealing with wire wheels. Here's some of my vintage proto tools. I've probably made these in the early 80s. Just nothing more than doing hydraulic cylinders, where I've just polished down the ends, kind of sanded them and polished, where pretty impossible to hurt anything. And here, just going back together with, with the seals. That's a little dampening seal in there. It's not the main sealing ring, but it helps kind of cushion and keep some of the crap from building up and getting into the main sealing ring, which is that ring right there. And then you just kind of got to, work it in until you get it in. Like I said, these particular screwdrivers have been sanded down and polished to where there's nothing that'll nick or hurt the rubber. If you were to do that with a regular screwdriver, you would probably compromise the seal. Here I'm working on the main lift cylinder, and it actually goes right inside the main boom where you can't hardly see it. So what I like to do is I like to Loctite the dust seal in. This particular seal here, if pressure hydraulic oil makes it to it, it's just going to pass right through it. This is nothing more than a dust seal to keep crap from getting into the cylinder from the outside. And Loctite just helps assure that it's not going to come out. Here we have this static head seal and the backup ring. The green, of course, just an O-ring. It does all your sealing. And then that backup ring just gives it a little bit of cush. When the pressure hits that O-ring and starts wanting to push and swell it out, it just has a little softer cush behind it, for the O-ring to push up against. Here, just polishing into the rod where it slides through the rod seal, just to make sure there's no little nick or anything. And this Parker O-ring lube, it's not cheap, very expensive, but it's pretty awesome. In a lot of applications, it's all I'll use. Here you can see the little green nylon buttons, you know, that was kind of like a nylock or whatever. But I'll always use Loctite. I don't want that bolt to ever come loose. Yeah, it would not be a good thing to have that piston ever come loose from the rod with the backhoe up.
Perfect. How you doing, Jack?
Excellent.
Here I'm just showing off my my proper camera angle skills.
Go ahead and hold that out. Okay.
I'm sure it'll be a long time before this just has to come apart, but just kind of gooping up some anti-seize in there for the next time. You know, hopefully they won't have to heat it up like I had to do. Another one that was almost too tight to break loose without heating it up. Everybody's definition of tight is a little bit different. I would put this in the tight class. It's a 48-inch pipe wrench with a 5-foot cheater and a little backhoe on the end of the cheater pipe.
Damn. There we go.
Always try to clamp your work down. It always makes everything go so much smoother. ready for bead blasting. This little clip here is from Adam at A-Bomb 79, where he was doing some Kubota cylinders. And he showed this kit before, quite a while back actually. And when I first seen this tool, I thought, well, where was that all the years I was doing hydraulic cylinders? And as you can see, these style steels need to be folded inward. And anyway, rather than spending money and buying a tool, why do that when you can make it? So I decided to just make a tool that did the same thing. Here I just took a little hinged lock mechanism for a gate, and I just drove the original pin out, which was just under 5/16, and then I just took a 5/16 drill bit, kind of ran it through both halves, and took a 5/16 bolt, drove it in, silver soldered a couple 1/4-inch rods on both sides, and there we go. We have a tool. I need to apologize. My iPhone 6 that I've been using for all my videos has been giving me some problems. So I apologize when you see a little hiccup. It's just from my old phone. I'll generally stick my O-ring pick down in there and kind of rotate it like I'm doing right there. It just keeps the O-ring from twisting. Sometimes if you just roll them on there, they twist up. And here I'm putting the rings on the pistons. The rings do have a nylon material, or should I say a Teflon material in them. You know, so just warming them up. You know, I don't know what degree, 200 degree water. I think I just had them sitting in for a while, and then just kind of push them on. If you don't heat them up, they'll stretch out, and then you'll have a hard time getting them to come back to size. The smaller the cylinders are, like the smaller Kubota size, the harder they are to get the rings in. You know, these are totally doable without a tool, but the tool makes it nice. Back in the day, I'd take a couple pair of needle nose and kind of use them to twist them up. And so yeah, you know, for just a quick little tool, it seemed to do the job okay. Here I'm just using some Scotch-Brite wheels just to kind of clean off just the edge, the part where the head, sticks into the cylinder. That way I can see what I got to do as far as the sealing area. Hey Jack, bring it in. Again, here you just want to make sure right at where the O-ring seals is really nice and clean. And now everything's pretty much ready to start assembly. Here I'm showing the distance of the cylinder tube that doesn't really contact anywhere. You have a pretty good area there that doesn't really do much. Once again, as long as the O-ring area looks good, you're fine. Here Jack's with the die grinder with the flap disc, and he's just kind of going around and cleaning the area up where the O-ring's going to seal.
Yeah, go on a little bit more. Looks like there's still.
Yeah.
Back when I started wrenching in the early 80s, I spent a lot of money on tools. And this dead blow here was actually a Mac, and one I bought in the early 80s just kind of started coming apart, and finally turned it in for a new one. Okay, the part of these that were hardest to break loose, and why they broke loose very abruptly, is this shoulder right here. This shoulder right here goes tied up against this area right there. And over years, it just kind of locks on, and as you've seen in the video, when it does break loose, it's not real tight on the thread, but it goes all at once. I want to thank Jack for working on this project with me. As you see, I gave him the grunt work and got the cylinders all done, ready to go back to the customer. And here I got a hydraulic valve assembly that I got to work on next. Anyway, as always, I appreciate anybody that took the time to check out the video. And thumbs up are awesome. New subscribers are awesome. Anyway, I appreciate it.